This is MTG Burgeoning, and everything you need to know about this channel, from subscriber reward series and giveaways to regularly scheduled content and programming, can be read in the description below. Welcome back to another Top 10s Day Wednesday video. In today's video, we're going to talk about my 10 favorite mass removal spells. Mass removal spells are an important factor in deck building and playing Magic the Gathering. However, not all removal spells are created equal. Players have preferred or go-to mass removal spells for each color, color combination, and format. In this video, I'm going to discuss my 10 favorite mass removal spells. For the purposes of clarity, this is not a list of the most powerful mass removal spells or even the most played. This is a personal list of removal spells that I use with the greatest frequency. Some spells are functionally better in specific types of decks, and other spells are good in every deck. Let's begin. Number 10 on this list is Decree of Annihilation. Caution! Make sure you have a reason for including this removal spell in your deck. For the hefty mana cost of 8 and 2R, this sorcery exiles all artifacts, creatures, lands, graveyards, and hands from the game. Did you notice what permanent types were omitted? Decree of Annihilation does not exile enchantments or planeswalkers, which makes it the perfect removal spell for enchantments matter and planeswalker decks. Additionally, for 5 and 2R, you can cycle Decree of Annihilation and destroy all lands. To reiterate, make sure you have a reason for including this spell in your deck because your artifacts, creatures, lands, graveyard, and hand are exiled too. Number 9 on this list is Chandras Ignition. This removal spell can be a potential win condition under the right circumstances. For 3 and 2 red, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. Notice the text of this spell. It says deals damage to each other creature and each opponent. When the dust settles and without opponent interaction, you will most likely be the only player with a creature on the battlefield. Additionally, the direct damage dealt to each opponent could be lethal under the right set of circumstances. With a big enough creature, Chandras Ignition can clear the battlefield and deal direct damage to opponents. Number 8 on this list is Austerity Command. This is the only mono-white removal spell to make this list. The majority of white's mass removal spells are very straightforward, offering very little in the terms of variance or versatility. Austerity Command is much different, and its versatility is the reason why it's on this list. For 4 and 2 white, you are presented with 4 options from which to choose, and the caster can select any 2 of the following. Destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less, or destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 4 or more. Providing modal options makes this card more valuable than traditional Wrath of God and Day of Judgment type spells. Number 7 on this list is Garricks Wake. Over 20 years ago, a spell called Plague Wind debuted in the Prophecy set. It destroys all creatures you don't control for the same mana cost of in Garricks Wake. The best removal spell is the one that doesn't affect you or affects you minimally, an edict that many of the spells on this list follow. The spell is pricey as its converted mana cost is 7 and 2 black. Upon casting in Garricks Wake, you destroy all creatures you don't control and all planeswalkers you don't control. Of course, there's always the potential of spell copying shenanigans wherein this spell destroys all creatures and planeswalkers you control. These scenarios are few and far between. It's worth the minimal risk to play in Garricks Wake. Number 6 on this list is Blasphemous Act. In most instances, this is the most economical way to cleanse the battlefield of nearly all creatures. Blasphemous Act deals 13 damage to each creature. Its mana cost is 8 and a red. However, no one is casting this spell for 8 and a red. In the EDH format, where this spell is most predominantly played, Blasphemous Act is going to cost a single solitary red mana in nearly every game. That's because the spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. In order to deal 13 damage to each creature on the battlefield for 1 red mana, the battlefield must contain at least 8 total creatures. This feat is common in EDH and at kitchen tables everywhere, which are the exact places I play this card the most. Number 5 on this list is Toxic Deluge. This is the only spell on this list that was originally printed in a Commander product. First appearing in the Eternal Bargain pre-constructed Commander 2013 deck, Toxic Deluge is a selective board wipe due to the nature of its casting cost. Aside from paying 2 and a black, there is an additional cost to cast this spell. You may pay X life. When you do, all creatures get -X until the end of turn. I love the versatility of this spell. It doesn't target creatures, so the spell dances around Hexproof and Shroud. It also doesn't deal damage to creatures, so creatures with Indestructible and protection from black can be destroyed. Paying 11 life in order to remove Blightsteel Colossus from the battlefield is much more favorable than dying to infect. Number 4 on this list is Ruinous Ultimatum. Yes, the mana cost could be a bit prohibitive, as the spell costs 2 red, 3 white, and 2 black. Ruinous Ultimatum can be difficult to cast in non-EDH formats, but the payoff is worth this potential risk. You destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control. No, this spell will not remove indestructible permanents from the battlefield. However, this spell will not remove any of your permanents either. This is the destructive equivalent of an overloaded Cyclonic Rift. Yes, Boros Charm exists. Yes, Heroic Intervention exists. Do you know what doesn't exist? Any other spell that destroys all non-land permanents your opponents control. Ruinous Ultimatum is the only spell in Magic's history at this time to accomplish this feat. Number 3 on this list is All is Dust. Caution! Think back to number 10 on this list, Decree of Annihilation. Through deck building and anticipation, a spell like Decree of Annihilation can be game-ending. The same is true for All is Dust. Admittedly, this removal spell is much more valuable in colorless decks such as Tron and various EDH builds like Kozilek the Great Distortion and Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger. By investing 7 mana into this spell, its controller forces the table to sacrifice all colored permanents they control. As mentioned previously, the best mass removal spell is the one that doesn't affect you or affects you minimally. All is Dust is restrictive, but it can be a game-ending removal spell. Number 2 on this list is Merciless Eviction. Exiling is the most powerful form of removal. There are many ways to prevent permanents from being destroyed. There's protection, indestructible, and regeneration. Once sent to the graveyard, there are even more ways to get them back. Spells that bounce permanents to their owner's hands are merely delaying the inevitable return of these permanents. When permanents are exiled, although not impossible, it is inordinately difficult to get them back. Merciless Eviction provides 4 different exiling modes from which to choose. Exile all artifacts, exile all creatures, exile all enchantments, or exile all planeswalkers. Modal mass exiling spells are as rare as winter roses and just as powerful. Lastly, and unsurprisingly, number 1 on this list is Cyclonic Rift. One of the most popular cards in the EDH format, Cyclonic Rift has become a ubiquitous inclusion in any deck supporting blue. For 1 and a blue, you return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. When cast for its overload cost of 6 and a blue, return each non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. There's no form of protection outside of counter magic that can prevent this. An end-of-turn overloaded Cyclonic Rift can create a chasm-like difference in board states, one which may be too difficult to overcome, and all at instant speed. For these reasons, and as long as it remains unbanned, Cyclonic Rift is my all-time favorite mass removal spell, and number 2 on this list isn't even close. That'll do it for this top 10 list. Which cards made your list? Let me know in the comment section below, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons on the way out. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.